Hello and welcome to another MovieBoozer.com virtual pubcast.
Wait, what?
Are you surprised
Is
that
This smooth talking, soft
is
radio.
Ken pitching his new tapes to fall asleep to line?
Yeah, really. I was
I,
about.
I just decided that it was time to speak in NPR mode.
Mm.
There you
So,
go.
why don't you tell us about your latest book, The Triumph of the Will?
This is
We're
Cokie
speaking with Adolf
Roberts.
Hitler, who's here to support his...
I'm Cokie Roberts,
causes
and this is All Things Considered.
listening to looks about books.
Yeah.
What if
right.
what if Gilbert Gottfried is getting interviewed on NPR and you could just hear that distinction?
So, Mr.
So, Mr.
Gottfried.
Gottfried, tell us about
Tell
the
us.
movie. Well,
I was fucking her in the ass.
No, he wouldn't go that far, but he would. He certainly would be a
On NPR, yeah, he wouldn't go that far on NPR, but well, I don't know.
Well, in my book,
actually.
I talk about my life, and my life is a very interesting thing, Cokie Roberts.
He was on the special without Brett Davis, and Brett Davis is playing this Amish character, and he's referencing Iago from Aladdin. It's very important that you know this, but he's like, you played a bird. He just leaves it at that. I don't know why, just that short little blunt, like, you played a bird, is funny to me. It's so matter of fact.
So anyway, today
So
we're
anyway,
by Ken, Bill, Leon, Hawk Ripjaw, and myself, the other Bill.
yes. Well, this is my name's Larry. This is my brother Daryl. My other brother Daryl.
Well, speaking of Larry, didn't Larry the Cable Guy do something weird the other day? Like, he was interviewed on Fox and Friends, and he was like, "Oh, Hillary Clinton's going to be the end of America."
Oh, I'm sure he said something like that because he's good
I was
old
like,
Dan Whitney. He knows his politics.
You're a character.
I think he has a fan base to protect. He has a revenue stream to protect.
Yes.
Yeah, he does.
Well,
he
he's
does.
got that new Netflix special between him and Jeff Foxworthy because even because,
oh yeah,
yeah,
I've been scrambling to watch that one.
Ron White defected from the blue collar team years ago, and
He's
then
on the show Roadies. Have you guys seen Roadies?
Unfortunately,
Oh,
and,
word.
and then
Ooh.
what's his name is gone now. The guy who always talked about his family.
Bill Engvall.
Yeah, Ingval's gone now. So now it's just Jeff Foxworthy and Larry the Cable Guy, the two gimmick comics.
The most
always
noteworthy
felt-
thing. Did you guys
Go
know Bill Engvall had a terrible sitcom on TBS, but
Yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence played his daughter on it?
I
Who did?
remember
Oh.
hearing about that.
Who played the daughter?
Jennifer Lawrence, pre-Hunger Games.
J Law herself.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So
I'm actually kind of curious to watch the new special just to see how horrible it is. 'Cause I really hate both of those two.
Except
Medias.
the problem with doing that is just clicking that button on Netflix means you've told Netflix that you watched it, and so they're more likely.
I don't agree with that because I watch crap on there that I have no like. If you can rate things, give it like 1 star or something. Problem solved.
Yeah, I
but
think
the
if
thing
you.
is, do you think Netflix cares? They care
Yeah.
that they care you watched it.
I wish that Netflix had like a privacy mode like Spotify has.
Where you can
So like if you don't want your friends to know that you just listen to Panic at the Disco, you can turn it on privacy mode and nobody will know. No
Or that
algorithms are affected.
on
It's
Spotify.
or that you watch the Blue is the Warmest Color on repeat several times at night
like 3 times a week. Just
at a certain time of night. Yeah, right.
Like an incognito window you could launch so that when you're a kid you don't want your parents to know you're browsing porn, things like
Yeah,
that.
right. Well,
Instead, you don't want your kids to know that you're watching, I don't know, Ridiculous Six or something.
Ridiculous
It's
6.
ridiculous 6.
So
The do-over.
ugh.
I'm going to lead us out of this conversation because we have a lot of things to discuss this weekend, or this week, and this weekend a lot of heavy things happened. So we're going to start with the heavier and work our way through. Unfortunately, this week saw the passing of Gene Wilder, a splendid actor and writer and sometime director who really, I mean, I have to say he helped forge my idea of comedy as a kid. I don't know about you guys. You feel the same way?
I mean, he's great. I wouldn't say he's shaped. Maybe with the performance in Young Frankenstein, just because like I don't think I'd ever seen a lead performance like that before.
I would say based on that performance alone, just the raw energy that comes from it, you could say, I mean, he was a true persona, and his uncanny knack for just going from being a perfectly cogent, like even-tempered person into just this insane scream, and then bring things back down. Without it, it's not a shrill scream. It's some. How would you describe Gene Wilder? Yeah, primal's a good way to put it.
Who's the actor that played Frankenstein in the original?
In the original film?
Yeah.
Boris Karloff?
Yes,
No, the doctor that played Victor Frankenstein, not the monster.
No, hardly anyone remembers.
Either way, that dude, in the creation scene of that film, that actor is giving out a tremendous amount of manic energy. As far as I remember, that film really only has that in that one scene. But Gene Wilder takes that and just kind of strings it through his whole performance in Young Frankenstein.
Colin Clive. I had to remind myself too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and in Young Frankenstein, he's doing all that through this character development of a guy who's kind of like living in the shadows of his
grandfather, I think, right?
Father or grandfather, yeah, and or maybe it was his uncle. I don't.
I'm pretty sure it's his grandfather.
Okay, he's living in the shadows of his last name, and you can tell he's got a chip on his shoulder because of it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what has fueled his career and his life at this point, and what will soon be his destiny, which is to create this monster.
And what's fascinating about Wilder's performance in that film is the way he channels that energy into it, where at one moment he seems like a perfectly intelligent, respectable person who doesn't want anything to do with his insane legacy, but the way he so greedily falls into the same traps as his predecessors, it's this beautiful metamorphosis of a character.
I will say this, that film, I passed the Spanish class because of that film, because for some reason we watched it in Spanish and took a test on it, and I didn't even need to pay attention because I already knew the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say, it's such a universal film, anyone can understand it.
No. Well, I mean,
well, that is probably also true because the Frankenstein...
that film's got a lot of quippy dialogue and shit that you kind of probably need to understand English, and especially like the specific deliveries of those actors.
But the thing is, the performances are also there's a physical humor to a lot of the film that can be. It's a kind of film that, regardless of the language, there is a great deal of humor on the screen that you're actually seeing.
I think my favorite. I'm sorry. I think my favorite moment is when it was an improv moment. Is when Gene Wilder is giving his sort of his spiel on saving life. You know, like that student is challenging him about his family's past, and he's like, "Oh, I care about preserving life," and then he stabs himself in the leg accidentally.
I was just gonna bring this up, but no, the best part is how he kind of crosses his legs to hide it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was totally like on the fly. He actually stabbed himself. He didn't know, he wasn't planning on it. It just kind of happened. It's kind of like Leonardo DiCaprio in Django Unchained almost.
And his voice is
like, a moment.
Class is dismissed.
It's so much pain.
Everyone's been there where they've hurt themselves on accident doing something public, and they're like, they need to hide the fact that they just did something stupid.
And the way he says a swear word, like he says, doo-doo isn't really a swear word, but the way he says doo-doo.
Doo-doo!
Like, my grandfather's plans were doo-doo. You know, he says it with such just
vigor.
Vigor, yes, that's the perfect word for it. That it makes you go like, oh,
and
like, swear word.
And of course, besides Young Frankenstein, Gene Wilder also had some other classic performances. Of course, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. He is the epitome of the Willy Wonka character.
That's actually where I learned how to best articulate sarcasm.
Mhm.
Was through his performance.
Absolutely, and
You know
it's
what's
so
crazy?
subtle. It's the kind of subtlety that when you're a little kid, you
You
don't.
don't get it. No,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I was going to say. Is
No,
it was a
I
long
perfectly got it. I was like, dude, this
I-
guy's being an asshole to
But
these
that
kids.
film, and I will, in my defense, not getting it. Like that film, he's not the focus. The focus is like the sets and the special effects going on and the childlike whimsy of the journey.
Every moment he's on camera, though, he's owning that film.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, stop! Don't come back.
Yeah, and we're going to also mention his first major performance in The Producers as Max Bialystock.
Mhm.
No, I'm sorry, Zero Mostel was that. He was Leo Bloom. I mixed
Leo
that up.
Bloom.
And yeah, and in The Producers, he plays a very squirrely, kind of wimpy character who is whipped up into a frenzy by by Zero Mostel and this powerful man. And it's a wholly different character from Young Frankenstein, where his character is a very confident person,
Mhm.
and that just shows his flexibility. And then on top of that, who can forget the Waco Kid in Blazing Saddles?
I just watched that the other day.
I rewatched it the other day as well. It had been a few years, and that movie holds up.
It always holds up. It's going to hold up forever.
And what's
yes.
great? Here's the thing. What's great about
I'm
Blazing
not-
Saddles? Even the dated jokes are still contextually funny.
It's the Mel Brooks movies are you can't even compare them to spoof movies nowadays. Spoof movies nowadays are dated within a week. Mel Brooks just made movies, you know.
Well, Mel Brooks had a specific style to his spoofs.
Let me ask you guys: who in this room knew who Hedy Lamarr?
Hedy Lamarr?
Yeah, Hedy Lamarr. Sorry, who Hedy Lamarr was prior to Blazing Saddles?
I did. Well,
to me, it didn't really matter.
Right, it doesn't, because the joke is funny without knowing that it's a reference to an actress.
Right,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you, Hedy Lamarr is...
You get it when he goes into the movie theater later in the movie, but yeah. Go ahead, Bill.
Hedy Lamarr is referenced in the lyrics of Little Shop of Horrors, so I at least was familiar with the name.
So yeah, I'm just saying that's the thing about that film.
I'm just thinking about that scene where Mel Brooks is the the governor?
Oh my God, dude! Are you talking about where he like puts his arm around him and he's walking and he's like, "Can't you see this man is a nit?"
No, it's the scene before that where he's with Hedy Lamarr and they're trying to get him to sign something and they have this one little quick moment where they look at each other and they go,
Oh yeah, that's great.
That kills me every single time I think about it.
Yeah,
Now, in Blazing Saddles, where one of my favorite physical elements to Gene Wilder's performance is the whole concept behind the Waco Kid being so fast you literally cannot see his hands move when he's drawing.
Well, that's the joke. They're accentuating this ability. In a regular Western, they probably would have done something like more of a trick. In this movie, they just don't even do the trick. They're just like, oh, it happened, and just believe it.
The simple silliness, though, of some moment of like the moment where he's saying, that he's not as good as he used to be, and he holds out his hands like, just look at this, and Cleavon Little's as far as just saying, yeah, he says, steady as a rock, yeah. it's
But I shoot with this hand.
It's classic Mel Brooks comedy, and Wilder plays it perfectly. The famous scene where Cleavon Little, the old lady, calls him the N-word, and he's all depressed, and Gene Wilder's talking to him very quietly and telling him,
morons.
Yeah, exactly. He's saying these are salt of the earth, just
farmers.
Morons. That moron line apparently was not even apparently Cleavon Little wasn't even aware that line was going to be said.
Oh, that feels like a natural laugh when they both laugh.
It is, because Mel Brooks and Gene Wilder kind of conspired to completely surprise him with that line, and that laugh is completely genuine.
My favorite moment. in that, as far as his performance goes, Gene Wilder's performance in Blazing Saddles was the end. Right before they ride off into the sunset, well, right off the set.
Drive off
they,
into the sunset, really.
Yeah, drive off. Cleavon Little goes up to him and he's like, Gene Wilder's like, where are you headed? And he's like, nowhere special. And he goes, nowhere special. Always wanted to go there.
That's a classic cliched Western-like kind of line that you might hear John Wayne or Dean Martin or something saying one of those old movies, and it's
right. But he says it with like a kind of like a calm, philosophical. Like I could have expected Bill Murray to say that with the same kind of Zen-like genuineness. I don't know. It was said in such a nice way.
Really quick. Let's go in a round. What is everyone's favorite line they can come up with off the top of their head from Blazing Saddles?
Just any line, doesn't even have to be Gene Wilder.
Any line, just for fun.
Too long since I've seen that movie.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I get a belt out of you is pretty good.
Oh yeah.
I loved Piss on You. I'm working for Mel Brooks.
Okay, so that's the thing I want to talk about. Is Blazing Saddles the first film to just completely knock down the fourth wall?
No, it's been done
not
before.
the first film to knock down the fourth wall, but it is the first film. I believe Guinness World Records proved this. It's the first film to feature farting.
Okay, so that I've never really cared for that joke, but partially because I think when I was told about the film's existence like that, whoever told me about it was like, yeah, there's this great fart scene, and
well, it's true because it's literally the first time that ever happened in a film.
It's not great. It's great in its simplicity in that they're just farting. There's
and it
nothing
just goes
more to it
on
than
for an uncomfortably long time.
They're not extreme farting. They're not silent farting. They're just farting while eating. It's like it's casual.
What makes me laugh is when
that's all it is.
What makes me laugh is actually when they start throwing in some belches too, and I'm just like, wow, they're really going for the gusto.
I was reading something where that scene was in that era a little more distinctly R-rated because of the farting, and then whereas nowadays you can fart jokes in G-rated kids movies.
Yeah,
it's quite tame now.
Yeah, I remember watching that movie for the first time on the Family Channel, and the fart scene was completely cut off.
Yeah,
that's bullshit.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Hold the phone here. They showed this on a Family Channel?
Edited to hell.
I was going to say, because, what's left after you take the risque jokes?
Not much at all. It wound up being it wound up being an hour and a half long with commercials. And the movie is little over
20, right? Yeah.
So that reminds me. I wish I'd watched this the other day, but we were browsing the TV channels, and on the HBO Family channel they were playing Project X.
What?
We didn't.
Hold on. Wait. You didn't click on it?
No, we just kind of laughed at it. And
there's a movie with Matthew Broderick called Project X. It was probably that.
No, it was the.
Oh, it said 2011 or 12 or whenever it came out.
Are you sure? Maybe it was just like an info error.
Well, yeah, no, because on well, I mean, if we click on something else, maybe, but if you scroll through the channels, once you land on each one, you get a blurb underneath the guide that says what it is.
And HBO doesn't edit anything. How is that appropriate to air on their Family Channel?
Somebody fucked up in scheduling, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So really quick, I'll just give my favorite line in the movie, in Blazing Saddles, is they're in the Hollywood commissary, and you see the guy dressed as Hitler, and the guy looks at him and says, how long you in? And the guy just says, they lose me after the bunkus scene.
Yeah.
I
give an honorary... Oh, go ahead, Bill.
I mentioned it already, but there's a scene where Mel Brooks walks with Cleavon Little, and he's like, can't you see that man is a nit? But then he does it again with Harvey Korman, and he never says the word. He just goes, can't you see that man is a nit? He doesn't say the word. And I don't know if that was like a choice Mel Brooks consciously made, but for some reason that I just like that he doesn't say it.
Yeah, that's a standard Mel Brooks kind of vaudevillian joke. One thing to remember is Brooks got his start doing comedy in the Appalachians
with Carl Reiner.
Exactly, and that is the kind of bizarre, off-kilter humor that exemplifies that sort of thing. That's why his movies always have a lot of musical numbers in them, because that's in those from the comedy world he came from, you would have comedy and music. So the comedian would also do a song, things like that.
There was this moment too in our scene where Harvey Korman's like running through a list of bad guys that he wants his henchmen to get, and what's the actor's name that plays this main henchman? Slim Pickens. Slim Pickens. He's like checking his body for paper and a pencil, and the whole time, Harvey Korman's like buggerers, stuggerers, Methodists, and he's running off this lame list of bad guys, and finally gets the pad of paper and the pen. Could you repeat that, sir?
Mm-hmm. Well, gee, no? Mr. Okay, Lamar, you use your tongue partier than a $20 whore.
Yeah, there's so many good lines in that movie. Tell them I said ow. Got it.
So anyway, we're going to move on from Blazing Saddles really quick, because I do want to talk about today, just for I've decided to use this week to catch up on some Gene Wilder movies I either have never seen or haven't seen in a long time.
One of my favorite Gene Wilder moments in Blazing Saddles, just on the topic of him specifically and his performance, and it's a little thing, but the way he gets the KKK's attention, he's like, "Oh, boys!
Over here!
Look what we got here!"
Or when he's like spitting on Cleavon Little's hand, like, "See, it's coming off." The black skin.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that, because Richard Pryor co-wrote that movie, and I have a feeling that seems like a Pryor line. Yeah.
Hey, that's where I got the white women at joke.
Yes.
Where are the white women at?
I loved it, and the way Cleavon delivers it, like.
So with the films I saw today, I watched another film that Wilder is well known for, and this actually fits our conversation because it actually merges into it was a collaboration, Wilder and Richard Pryor. It was the first of 4 films they would do together. Not all of them are great, but the first 2, Stir Crazy and the very first, Silver Streak, are both worth watching. Mm-hmm. And Silver Streak is a sort of, I would call it kind of a parody of like Alfred Hitchcock sort of movies. It's got a little North by Northwest in it. Basically, what happens is
it's a caper film, right?
Yeah, exactly. Wilder plays this everyday book editor who's getting on a train to go to Chicago from Los Angeles, and his plan is to take the train because he wants it to be a relaxing, boring trip. And while on the train, he meets this woman. He kind of shacks up with her, and the night that he's sleeping with her, he sees a dead body fall past his window, hanging, and then it just falls off. And it freaks him out, of course. Wouldn't you be? And it falls into this conspiracy plot where he winds up discovering, that this murder took place, and there's this plan to replace this person, and it's got a great cast. Besides Gene Wilder, you've also got Ned Beatty, Clifton James, Richard Kiel is in the movie, famous for playing Jaws in 2 of the James Bond movies. And Clifton James, if you don't know who he is, he was also in 2 James Bond movies. As probably one of the more embarrassing moments in Bond is the character of Sheriff J.W. Pepper in Live and Let Die and The Man with the Golden Gun, the redneck sheriff. He plays the exact same character in this movie. Small-town sheriff.
This is a part of the James Bond cinematic universe.
You could argue that this is part of the cinematic. It's a different character name, but it's like the same. Okay. What he does, he's a redneck sheriff. And anyway,
it's like Billy Bob Thornton doing his shtick of a jerk who swears a lot.
He fucking, what's it called? Bad News Bears. He's like the same exact. He's the PG-13 version of Bad Santa.
So with Silver Streak, what makes it fascinating? It's not a perfect movie. It's I think it's dated by a few things, and I'll get into a couple of those in a moment. But what works is the opening of the movie is much more straightforward. The humor is not quite as base. It's actually treated more like a romantic comedy at first. When he meets this woman, there's this wonderful sequence of dialogue where he's trading romantic dialogue with her, with flirty dialogue that is both ridiculous and clever and kind of sexy. And seeing Gene Wilder play kind of a, smoothie is not expected.
Smoothie?
Yeah, he's...
Yeah, smooth talker.
Smooth talker.
I've never heard the term smoothie, but all right.
Well, now you have. So...
The more you know.
An hour into the movie, Richard Pryor shows up, and as just a thief that... basically, that while Gene Wilder is escaping, he runs into this thief, and they kind of team up to solve the rest of the mystery. And their team up is actually really interesting because they have this chemistry together where Wilder is kind of one of the he's a very straight-laced, very white-sounding person. His voice is not and Richard Pryor is, of course, more, it's that combination, and it's a very 70s thing to team up the straight-laced white guy with the urban character. But this movie was really the first prominent comedy where a white guy and a black guy kind of teamed up and played equal parts.
Mm-hmm.
And they were really, because they did feature films after that, they were really the first white guy, black guy comedy team.
I like their team up in See No Evil, Hear No Evil.
Mm. Yeah, that movie is... I like parts of it. I haven't seen it for years. I need to rewatch it. But yeah,
I'm surprised you haven't talked about the scene from Silver Streak yet.
Well, I was getting there. The most controversial scene in Silver Streak is the scene where Richard Pryor gets some shoe polish, and to help distract, to help get Gene Wilder past the police, he tells Gene Wilder to act black.
This is good. No, I mean, this is... He said controversial, but as far as like people that enjoy comedy films, I've never heard anybody say a bad word about this scene.
Well, it was hilarious back in the day. A lot of people liked it. It's
a little dated. It's a little dated, right, but it's still funny. It's funny, definitely the 70s when it was happening.
Let me put it this way. It's a scene that if it was in a movie nowadays, played out as it was played out.
Total flip shit.
Yeah, you have to watch it with the context of what the stereotypical African-American tropes were at the time, and the fact that he's parodying those tropes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think you can still watch it nowadays, and probably, even just with where we are now.
You have to watch it with the context of knowing what those were, because nowadays they're so dated that it's kind of it almost amps up the offensiveness by going even further back and being that much less knowledgeable of.
Maybe. I guess I'm giving too much credit to audiences. Some would have to probably know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think the scene's still funny, and the fact is that, Richard Pryor agreed to do the scene, and he was one of those people who would not have done it if it had,
if he didn't believe in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
probably
anyway.
if it were someone else, if it wasn't Gene Wilder, he probably wouldn't have done it, Richard Pryor.
Right. Well, because he had worked with Richard Pryor and with Blazing Saddles, at least from the writer's perspective. And
what I mean is he trusted Wilder to deliver a performance that would do that scene justice.
Exactly.
And he does. He's funny in it.
And the other film that I saw from Gene Wilder today is a movie that I've seen before, but it's been probably a good solid decade or more. I watched it quite a few times when I was a kid. This 1970 parody film called Start the Revolution Without Me. Now, this predates Blazing Saddles or Young Frankenstein. It's not a Mel Brooks comedy. The only Wilder comedy of any prominence that came out prior to this was The Producers.
Right.
And this was kind of the movie that I think, in many ways, it may have been the movie that got Gene Wilder further parody roles because he plays literally dual roles in it. The plot of Start the Revolution Without Me is very convoluted. It's kind of the plot is really not the most important aspect of it, but the concept is it takes place during the French Revolution, and you have 4 babies born on the same night. 2 to a wealthy family of nobility, 2 to this poor family, both being cared for by the same doctor. The doctor's drunk, fucks it up, and the babies get switched at birth. But they get switched 2 and 2, so you have one of each there. And so what you have is, fast forward to the Revolution times, you have 2 brothers living on the island of Corsica in their wealthy villa, played by Gene Wilder and Donald Sutherland. And then in Paris, on the streets, you have 2 homeless revolutionaries, played by Gene Wilder and Donald Sutherland.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it takes a moment to set that up, but really the movie is a goofy satire and farce with that really does quite aptly skewers a lot of the dustier concepts and conceits of the period drama. For one thing, Orson Welles bookends the movie. He opens up the movie by giving this opening narrative about these characters, and he explains that that a wonderful movie was made about these characters, and I'm not in it. And then the movie just cuts to the movie, and then he shows up at the end and gets killed randomly.
Sounds like Run, Ronnie, Run.
Another interesting genre trope that occurs throughout the movie is scene-setting titles. The movie opens up with Paris, 1789. And then from that point forward, almost every single scene in the movie is set with a new set of titles, always ending with 1789. And it gets to the point where it's ridiculous. Things like a small home on the outskirts of Paris, 1789. Corsica, 1789.
Right. Yeah.
And stuff like that. And what works from Gene Wilder, what he performs in this movie, is he plays 2 completely different characters. The poor brother is kind of a nicer character and kind of a wimpier character. The wealthy version of him is a stuck-up psychopath. So much more of the shouting version of Gene Wilder. That energy. Make that an entire character on its own. And there's kind of a almost Monty Python-esque kind of aspect to some of the humor. For instance, towards the beginning of the film, the wealthy Gene Wilder character has this falcon on his arm that's so obviously a dead
dummy.
Yeah, dead bird. And he's riding a horse, and you're seeing it just flopping up and down all over the place. And then he falls down, and the wing snaps, and he walks around with it snapped for a while before he just discards it. It's not a perfect movie. Some of the humor is a little base and a little predictable, but I will say it's one of the movies that helped forge my interest in Wilder as a performer because of that. And Donald Sutherland's also really fun to watch in it too. They play off of each other quite well, and I would say I would argue that Mel Brooks probably saw that movie and said, when making 10 years later History of the World Part 1, he probably said, yeah, I could do that. And so the French Revolution sequence in History of the World Part 1 repeats a lot of those same cliches, which is still very funny.
Piss boy.
Yes, Piss Boy. And although my favorite part is the peasant hunting sequence where you have the King Louis standing there with a shotgun, and he yells, "Pull!" And you see a peasant get shot into the air, and he just goes,
wow. This is, you mentioned History of the World. This is a little bit of an aside from Gene Wilder, but in my time talking about movies with people, I've met a few people in my life, maybe you guys have as well, people that think History of the World Part 2 is a movie that exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should.
It's happened to me multiple times, and I have to clarify to these people. I'm like, no, that's not. And sometimes they'll argue and insist that this is a real movie, and I'm like, no, it's fucking not.
In almost every Mel Brooks movie, there is a line referencing a possible sequel. Spaceballs has Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money.
Well, yeah, that's a running gag through that film.
And then you have Prince of Robin Hood, Men in Tights, where they reference Robin Hood 2 in the song.
About to say Prince of Thieves.
Yeah, I was about to. Well, you know, Men in Tights totally. I mean, it was made after Prince of Thieves, and it copies a few of those. And of course, it has the famous line, "Unlike other Robin Hoods, I can speak with English."
Yeah.
Obviously, ripping on Kevin Costner, who is decidedly not British.
Who's decidedly redneck.
I haven't seen this one in a while, but Gene Wilder fucked a sheep in Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Sex.
But we're afraid to ask.
Yes, which is the first Woody Allen film I ever saw. As a kid, I thought it was hilarious. I was like, it's a giant titty in a monster movie. This is brilliant.
That's a movie that I think it's very hit and miss, but the Gene Wilder sheep fucking sequence is one of the funnier moments, and it holds up perfectly today.
And Gene Wilder's not in it, but the whole sperm sequence, how the film, I think it's like the closing sketch, right? Yeah, that shit is great. There's a black sperm that's like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. So that's definitely interesting, but. So, needless to say, we're paying tribute to Gene Wilder because he had a splendid life, he had a wonderful career, and sadly, his life was faced with tragedy because his second wife, Gilda Radner, died very young, and he had to see that happen. And it's comforting to know that wherever he is, he's presumably in the same place that she may be. And she was a promising comedian in her own right. So.
And it was actually kind of touching. I read how he passed. It was with family and to an Ella Fitzgerald song.
Listening to his favorite music.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
It's definitely one of the less tragic celebrity deaths of this year. He lived a full life. He was like 80 years old.
83.
It's not like Bowie or Prince where we're still working. That's another thing. Gene Wilder hasn't really been in anything in a long time. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying
by choice. He pretty much retired. Yeah.
The sad truth about it, though, is he died of Alzheimer's, which is just a terrible disease. And to see anyone go through that, it's just it's sad that had to be what ended it, because that's a long ride that is.
Right.
That being said, you know what? He still lived a very long life. He had a nice career, and from Milwaukee to Hollywood to Connecticut, that was his life.
Meanwhile, Chris Brown has gotten to a standoff with SWAT team at his house.
Yeah, well, that was like yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying
Didn't he say to the police, "I'm gonna fart in your face from my ass"?
I don't know if he said that, but he said
Wait.
That was Chris Brown. He said something like, you said suck a fart out of my ass.
He's like the French guard from Holy Grail.
Yeah,
well,
right.
Actually, I don't know if you know this, but there was a famous French comedian named Lepetamine.
Yeah,
which is a reference, by the way, in Blazing Saddles. William J. Lepetamine, governor. That was an intentional joke by Mel Brooks to reference. Lepetamine was a French comedian from the early 1900s.
Somebody's gonna have to go back and get a shitload of nickels.
Yes. Well, what Lepetamine's gimmick was as a comedian was being able to suck air into his ass and fart on command.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that timed perfectly? That doorbell sound?
Kind of, yeah.
That's crazy, yeah.
So I just thought I'd bring that back, since there was a Blazing Saddles connection to that.
The reason I'm making that connection is that we are talking about a man who's lived an illustrious life, loved by many, and
Chris Brown is.
He spent most of yesterday. He tossed a duffel bag full of weapons and drugs out the window and said, "They need to get a warrant. They won't find anything in my house." And during this whole deal, he's periscoping, saying things like "fuck the police" and stuff like that.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Okay.
They can come and get me, and then they did, and they arrested him. So,
Yeah.
because basically they were standing around outside waiting for a warrant, and so they did, and they went in and
Chris Brown's lucky he's wealthy and famous, because if he wasn't,
he would have got his ass shot.
this would end up like tragically, like everything else would end up. You know?
Well, actually, it was basically he has having a party, and these two girls. Like apparently, if you go to a Chris Brown party, you got to surrender your cell phone until you leave.
I just realized that Chris Brown is exactly 27 years old.
Yes, he is.
Which is, and his birthday is until May of next year, so we've got some time until the 27 club rule plays out.
But he told these girls to get the fuck out of his house, and then they wanted to get their cell phones back, and before the guard would give them their cell phones back, they would have had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. The girl said, "No, thank you," grabbed the phone and ran. Like, grabbed the phone right out of the guard's hand and took off. And they were hiding under the SUV of their next-door neighbor's house as the guards were driving around looking for them.
Wow.
So, yeah, really messed up shit.
Yeah, Jesus.
So the neighbors called the police.
I want to get into yoga hosers. I had transition after transition, but
Yeah, no, it's fine.
just like the way Chris Brown treats people, they all got beaten to hell.
I think we were just so dreading this conversation that
I want to talk about
yoga hosers. Really?
I want to talk about the trailer for Yoga Hosers because it's terrible and
It's pretty bad. Yeah.
It's fucking awful. I know Ken has a very specific opinion of it because he's...
Well, the Fathom Events trailer in particular,
Yes.
because
This
it
looks
shows
like-
literally two speaking scenes in the movie, and both of them are like the kind of scenes you would have cut out of a trailer because this would make the movie look terrible.
Mhm.
This is the kind of movie that, when it bombs, Kevin Smith will be like, "Oh, but I made it bad on purpose."
No, I don't even know if he's doing that after the fact.
No, he's doing that now. Actually, he's not saying that the movie's bad. He's saying
I thought this was
made the
supposed to be
movie.
bad.
He said I made it for kids.
I thought this was supposed to be bad from the gate.
He did, yeah, and actually there was a lot of controversy over the MPAA because there was one scene where when Johnny Depp's character is looking at them over a book written by him, there's actually a dick on his author face on the back of the book, and just for that very reason, the MPAA gave it an R rating for this cartoon dick.
That was
shoved under his
stupid,
face.
but that was stupid. But
Which is a whole other can of worms, the controversy of the MPAA.
controversy. Yeah,
I mean, it really is. Like,
yeah, you're right. But I mean, like, it's controversy, but also the movie's bad.
This film...
sure, that's a whole. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The controversy is a whole different can of worms as far as.
Yeah, you're right.
As an independent filmmaker, you will have to work incredibly hard to not get an R rating for a ridiculous reason.
So to be clear, Bill Arsenault is the one in this room who saw the movie last night. I'm going to give the floor to him at this point to give us his opinion, unfettered, uncensored.
Well, let's get a synopsis in there. What's the plot of this beast?
I don't know if it has a plot. I mean, I guess there is. There's a loose framework that things happen under. Basically, the movie's about two girls, sophomores from high school, Canadian sophomores, called Colleen. Both of them are named Colleen. One is like Colleen M, the other's Colleen something else. And I forget what. It doesn't really matter. They're just
Colleen Depp, Colleen Smith. We're on the
essentially. And they both work at a convenience store which was featured in Tusk called the A to Z.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a Canadian joke, and in Canada they like to make fun of themselves apparently.
Maybe not Canadians make fun of themselves, but Kevin Smith likes to make fun of Canadians.
Yes.
I saw him at Carnegie Hall. He would not shut the fuck up about Wayne Gretzky.
He's a hockey fan.
I know that, and there's nothing wrong with being a hockey fan, but if his hockey fandom is why there's so much Canada shit in this, oh boy.
I don't think so. I think it's because he smoked pot one day and thought, oh, Canada is a place that we can make fun of because everyone makes fun of Canada.
I can start a new cinematic universe in Canada.
Like, he runs that joke so far into the ground, it's hit the core of the planet. seriously, in this movie, it's literally scene after scene of Canadian accent jokes, Canadian culture jokes. Not even culture. I don't even think he knows the culture of Canada. I don't even know it, but I can tell you he doesn't know it either.
But yeah, he's been there more than you have, so he should fucking know it.
You should know it. I've never been to Canada, so I can't tell you what it's like up there. I can tell you that there's some differences when it comes to movie releases. That's because it's another country.
There is some weirdness. I have a friend who lives in Canada. He said there is a person in his neighborhood who pushes around her pet goose in a baby stroller.
That sounds like some Canadian shit, I guess.
Yeah,
I've seen shit like that in the U.S., so I'm not gonna go that far.
Fries differently, and they put mayo on stuff. I don't know. I know it's a little different, but it's not that different. It's just it seems a little different. But and I can understand if Kevin Smith made a movie, kind of making fun of Canada, but almost from the perspective of what an American thinks Canada's like. That would be fine. But he kind of does it. He pushes it so far into the cartoony, almost Michael Bay stupid level that it's almost unforgivable. But back to what this movie's about, because I don't think it's really about anything. It's really just the two Colleens facing weird shit after weird shit. Basically, okay, they are invited to a senior party.
A Neener Nardy?
A Neener Nardy?
A Neener Nardy. And
because that wasn't in the trailer like 50
a million times, yeah.
I had to. I'm sorry.
So they're invited to this Neener Nardy, and unfortunately, they are told by their boss / one of the Colleens' fathers that they have to work that night. So they have to figure out
in the role of the dad. Anyone interesting in the role of the dad?
No, it's I mean, he's familiar. He played on Arrested Development as the nerdy Bluth, the one who had the mommy issues.
Oh,
Tony Hale plays the dad in this?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he does.
Holy
that's
shit!
him. And he's not very good in it, or maybe he's not given anything to work with. That's a better way to put it. So, anyways, they have to figure out how to attend this party. While at the same time, they have to deal with this Nazi problem at work. See, as it turns out, coincidentally, at school, they learn about a Canadian Nazi faction from the days of World War II. And then later in the movie, they find out there's an army of little sausage Nazis that lives in the convenience store, and that there's also an old Nazi mad scientist that lives underneath the convenience store. And they have to defeat that guy.
This is right. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking of like Clerks the cartoon, because this is like a fucking cartoon.
But even Clerks the cartoon had some stability.
Oh, Clerks the cartoon might be like the most solid thing Kevin Smith's ever worked on.
Now, true or false? The little Nazi sausage things are called Bratzies.
Yes, and they're played by Kevin Smith.
Come on.
That's true.
They are played by Kevin Smith. That's a fact.
No, I know it's a fact, but like, why did they have to do that? Fuck you, Kevin Smith.
Well, okay, I have a theory about why Kevin Smith played the Bratzies. In the film, and this is getting a little deeper, as deep as you could go into this plot, because it's like razor thin. Basically, the mad scientist Nazi reveals his plot to the Colleens, in that he wants. And it's an Aqua Teen Hunger Force type villain plot because it makes no sense whatsoever and it's completely nonsensical. Basically, it has nothing to do with being a Nazi. It has to do with the fact that he used to be an artist, a sculptor, and art critics took down and gave him such negativity that he wants to get revenge on art critics. So he creates this army of Bratzies under the pretense of it's going to be for the Nazi party. So that way, in 100 years, when he gets out of cryogenic freeze, he can kill the art critics in Canada.
Is this a metaphor for Kevin Smith's fan base?
So, yeah, what I'm saying is Kevin Smith cast himself as a Bratzi, which is the weapon that's going to kill the critics.
Oh, my God.
So let me ask you, I'm a regular listener to one of Kevin Smith's millions of podcasts.
Many podcasts.
I only listen to one. The Hollywood Babylon podcast is the one that the only one that I've found continually entertaining, and the reason being is there's a structure to it, and
Ralph Garman keeps him on point.
Ralph Garman is so horrible in this film.
And I was about to say, Ralph Garman is in this movie, and one recurring segment in the Hollywood Babylon podcast is, because it kind of goes procedurally, there's these different little mini sketches they always have in every episode, is one where Garman and Kevin Smith play Nazis.
Well, it's not so much...
I wanted to mention that.
I mean, it's possible Garman's having fun. I think everyone in this movie was having fun. It's just...
It doesn't translate to the audience.
It doesn't translate
to a good movie.
To a good movie. It just translates to a good time. But Ralph Garman plays this Nazi mad scientist who, for some reason, thinks he needs to do celebrity impersonations.
So it is Garman who plays the mad scientist? I had a feeling.
Yeah, it's Garman that plays the mad scientist. So while he's telling the Colleens and Guy Lapointe, who is Johnny Depp, he's the character.
Now. Wait, do they pronounce his name differently than in Tusk?
No, it was always Guy Lapointe.
Oh, okay. I always called him Guy. Is he any better as a character here than he was in Tusk?
I think he was fine as a character in Tusk because he was. I know he was bad in Tusk, but he was fine as a character because he was like the oddity in this weird horror film. You know, he was like the comedic oddity in this horror film. You know, and he plays like a Scooby-Doo character. You know, it's really weird. Like I'll get into why exactly I feel that way in a second. But anyways, the mad scientist played by Ralph Garman is like he's talking like a Nazi. You know, he's German. He's like, but I should explain my plan by doing an impersonation of Al Pacino. And then he starts doing an Al Pacino impersonation. And then
he does that on the fucking Hollywood Babylon podcast, because of course.
And then a few minutes later, he's like, let me do an impersonation of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Did he do a David Bowie impression?
No, he didn't do a David Bowie.
Okay,
but he did several. Yeah, shut the fuck up. He did several impersonations.
You're just as volatile as Yoga Hosers.
Yeah, I know, aren't I? he does so many different impersonations of celebrities for no reason, except there's a very thin idea that this Nazi guy was reading teen magazines after he got awoken from cryogenic freeze that got him obsessed with current pop culture. That's the reason why he's doing these impersonations is because. Yeah, it is. He actually
every layer of this is like, huh? What?
He actually says that. He's like, I was reading these teen magazines and I felt that the pop culture is the way to get through to the kids.
That sounds like Mel Brooks.
This has like ideas that you come up with while high written all over it.
Yeah, that's the whole movie basically. There's a lot of weird styles in this film too. Like for example.
Can I just point out, though, that
okay, go ahead.
Smoking pot does not destroy your judgment or, like,
It weakens your judgment a bit, yeah.
I guess, but not to this point. Like, it doesn't matter how much fucking drugs I have. I probably will never find the trailer to Yoga Hosers entertaining, or it will never make me want to watch it.
So, what I'm guessing happened is that he got high.
I've heard a lot of people
these ideas. And being the completionist that he is, he realized that he did not want to waste that high and just wanted to see this film due to completion.
Yes, I believe that's the case. In fact, I wrote about that in my review of it for Cut Print Film. I wrote that something to the extent of, to Kevin Smith's credit, he at least finished this film. You know, he gave his all to this vision. Even though the vision was blurry.
Did he have investors to please in this situation?
I don't know. Probably.
The movie had a $5 million budget, so presumably that money came from somewhere.
It had to. It couldn't have just manifested on its own, which would be very interesting if it did. Like if he just shit gold, you know.
I want to find out where that comes from.
Maybe he made it the same way Alejandro Jodorowsky's character in The Holy Mountain made gold out of poop.
Oh, God.
through alchemy, you know.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, okay. So Yoga Hosers. I think I explained the plot. What of a plot there is. The movie is mostly just a collection of scenes of the Colleens meeting people, having a small conversation with them, there being a gag here or there about Canada, and then moving on to the next scene. It's not. That's really all there is to it, and it's so infuriating to watch. The Colleens, played by Harley Quinn Smith and Lily Rose Depp, are actually pretty good. They have good chemistry with each other, and I thought they were pretty entertaining by themselves. But when they have to interact with others, and when they have to do the service of whatever screenplay there is, that's when it falters. That's when the whole thing just falls apart.
So the fault is more on the screenplay and less on the performances.
Yes, and the direction too. I think Kevin Smith has a problem with not knowing how to end a scene or when to end a scene. He likes to
He
just
didn't
go
used
on.
to.
He didn't used to. He used to. I think ever since Zack and Miri Make a Porno, ever since meeting Seth Rogen, who's like big onto improv, that's also when he started pot smoking. By the way,
Yes.
Zack and Miri. So we can attach that to Zack and Miri as well.
I like Zack and Miri though.
I liked it too, but you have to admit, like after that point, if you watch some of the behind the scenes stuff, he's like laughing hysterically at Seth Rogen's improv, which is fine. But he even talks about it in the behind the scenes documentary that I'm all into improv now, and I'm gonna do it more often in my movies. And I'm like, well,
Because I also have to write as many scenes.
You also have to be a director of that too. You can't just let it happen.
Right.
You gotta know when to cut it off.
You got to rein it in a little bit.
You gotta rein it in a little bit.
Kevin Smith is perfectly capable of directing movies, and it's been a while since I've seen a movie that he's directed that feels like a film that was directed. If that makes sense.
I think I know what you're saying. Like, he can make movies, but he doesn't always really nail it as far as being a guiding creative force.
Mm-hmm. I would argue maybe Red State to a point, but
for all the wrong reasons.
For some wrong reasons.
I enjoyed a lot of Red State.
I like Red State.
I
gave it a
think
positive
direction
review.
is one of the film's main problems.
I think
there are
Red
some
State,
tonal issues. Yeah.
I didn't like Red State, but I have to give it credit for making it making me very uncomfortable.
One of my favorite problems with Red State is that so much expository dialogue comes out of John Goodman on the cell phone with someone, and repeating what he's being told over the phone. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. I didn't tell them that was blah blah. And he goes, "It's who talks like this on the cell phone?"
What's funny in the behind the scenes documentary for Red State, Kevin Smith talks about how Michael Parks turns his dialogue into Shakespearean poetry, and I was like, "Fuck you!" Like, come on, man.
I would have. I would like to see the alternate ending, the original ending to Red State.
Yeah, that seemed like a cool ending, but Yoga Hosers, it completely sucked. It's the worst thing Kevin Smith has ever done.
And you didn't like it.
So is that why you were?
Of course, I didn't like it.
Is that why you were saying earlier today that you appreciate Tusk more now?
Yes, I appreciate Tusk. I actually listed Tusk on my Movie Boozer the year it came out on my Movie Boozer Worst of the Year. Despite the fact I didn't really think it was all that bad, I put it on the list in kind of an affectionate manner. I was like, it's bad, but it's not. It's not what I would normally list. Hang on, I'm not done yet.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. It was interesting enough and all that, but by comparison to Yoga Hosers, Tusk is like coherent. It's linear. Shut up. It's linear. It's fully fleshed out I'm saying by comparison, Bill Leon.
Right.
By itself. It's all that in a bag of potato chips. Go ahead, Ken.
All right. So Tusk is a hot mess of a movie that.
Yeah.
The one thing about Tusk I enjoy is the glee with which Michael Parks gives that performance, and the whole and the body horror element of turning into a walrus is so ridiculous, and I enjoyed that. And I have to admit, the garbage ending actually kind of makes the movie kind of fun.
Oh, it works. Yeah.
It totally
where it's
works.
like he's now completely walrus.
Yeah, that shit is. I would love to just edit everything I don't like out of Tusk, and it would be a smooth 30 to 45 minutes.
That would be literally everything that Haley Joel Osment appears in that movie.
I'm thinking Johnny Depp number
everything
one.
Johnny Depp appears in.
Because Johnny Depp. It's so funny to me that character is in Yoga Hosers. Like, that is a continuing character because I just despise that character from fucking frame one. The movie ground to a halt whenever he showed up in Tusk. It was just, I don't.
You know what the worst scene in Tusk was, and then that's saying something. What the worst scene in that movie was?
The Michael Parks and Johnny Depp
The
scene.
Michael Parks Johnny Depp conversation that went on for like 10 or 15 minutes, non-stop. You know. That the droning of that scene, that was an example of Kevin Smith not knowing when to stop. You know, basically quitting when he's ahead. You know, he should have quit at when he was ahead. You know, he shouldn't have kept drinking the alcohol and growing limbs. You know, that's the reference to joke, by the way. But yeah, Yoga Hosers, horrible, horrid. I hated it completely, and I can't wait for you guys to see it this weekend if it's playing near you.
Yeah,
it probably will be. So I'll see it for you.
See it for that sake, so that way we can continue this next week.
Yeah. Oh, I totally want to. Now, my big question is.
I totally want to.
I do. It's one of those movies that looks so bad. It's kind of.
It's not good. Don't trust me on this. It's so bad. It's just horrible.
I'm gonna look up right now if it's playing near me this weekend.
Yeah, I know the Fathom event got pretty, like, that's getting a wider release than the actual film is.
The Fathom event I was at last night. That was the Fathom event, and there were like 3 other people in my room.
How much did you pay to see this thing?
It's like $15. It was
really
Jesus
God.
Christ.
Now there's a Q&A that followed, and you didn't go to that, right?
No, I walked out in a huff. I was so mad.
I would have stayed. I would have wanted to hear Kevin Smith explain himself.
Justify himself, yeah.
Are you out on Moose Jaws, or are you still going to see Moose Jaws?
No, I'm still going to see Moose Jaws if it happens.
If it happens at this point, because Kevin Smith is he's been focusing more on talking about like some other endeavors. Like right now, he's developing a Buckaroo Banzai TV series.
Yeah, Buckaroo Banzai
Kevin Smith is like the Guillermo del Toro of indie comedy, where
I was going to say, yeah, isn't he also developing a Mallrats TV show?
He's doing that, and he's developing a 2-part hockey dramedy called Hit Someone,
which he's been doing for a couple years.
I was going to say,
the script for Clerks 3 was finished like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. So it's like.
And on top of that, he's also directing TV shows for the CW, like Supergirl and The Flash. So. You know, there's nothing wrong with that, but you know,
his Flash episode was really fun because Jason Mewes had a cameo.
Kevin Smith.
Jason Mewes has a cameo in Yoga Hosers too.
Oh, that's what
sure he does.
Are there any Askewniverse references in this movie? Like just desperate.
There's one very, very, very heavy reference to Clerks. That's when Harley Quinn Smith, or is it? Yeah,
Harley Quinn Smith and fucking something else Depp.
Lily Rose Depp. They're fighting off the Bratzies in the convenience store, and Harley Quinn Smith says, "I'm not even supposed to be here today."
That's in the trailer. I forgot. Oh my god. Oh, why did they put that in the trailer?
It looks like Yoga Hosers is not playing near me, which is
it's getting a
very disappointing.
Wide release. It's getting like.
Here's the thing. The moment I heard that they were doing a Fathom event of it, I said, you know what they're going to do? If the Fathom event tanks, they're not going to show this in theaters wide release.
They'll probably just go VOD after like a month or something.
Yeah, because I've searched around, and it's as far as I can tell, it's playing nowhere in the Chicagoland area either.
Which is funny because usually it's New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago that gets movies.
Because again, Brad Jones lives in Illinois. His friend on that review said the closest place it's playing after the Fathom event is like St. Louis, Missouri.
Ouch.
St. Louis, Missouri, which is 6.5 hours from here.
Yep.
Okay,
really.
That's
really.
I'm driving my ass down to St. Louis, Missouri because
road trip for Yoga Hosers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Talk about the worst fucking excuse of burning gas.
Getting to Wally World and it's closed for renovations.
That's exactly
I'm
the
literally
feeling right
going
there.
to the Yoga Hosers website to see if that actually lists theaters that are showing it.
Yeah, does it?
I'm looking.
There was a roadside not roadside attraction. What am I thinking of?
Oh,
Road show. There was a road show tour of Yoga Hosers done a couple months ago that Kevin Smith did, and he came around. He even came to New Orleans, where someone in the audience told him he felt the movie was horrible, which was funny because Smith even confronted him on it. But what happened was for some of the VIP fans, he gave them a digital copy of the film. So it's possible there might be some kind of digital release very soon.
I could leak.
so I could.
That shit.
Yeah.
There's a theater in Aurora, Colorado, playing it. I could drive 35 minutes to go see it on Sunday.
Okay, well that's not terrible. I mean, that's if you really want to do that.
There's
I only had to
nothing to
drive-
do in Aurora besides get shot at, so I don't know.
Oh, dude, come on, man. You really got to make that reference?
Oh shit!
Oh, I didn't mean it like that.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, holy shit!
I was going to say, boo.
No, actually, Aurora. No, Aurora is a high crime town now. Like there, I was actually looking at living there, and yeah, excuse me, I didn't even catch that reference until about 5 seconds after I said it. Aurora is like Greeley for rich people. There is still lots of gang activity. Your house will be broken into, and there's just not a safe area of town to be in. So that's what I meant, is that this is gangland southern Colorado, pretty much.
Okay, so the closest theater to me is in the Stratford Square Mall, so that's way over in Carroll Stream. That would be our drive there and back, and I know that mall pretty well. It's it's kind of a pompous, rich person mall.
Ooh.
You know what? I'm
fuck
not.
those people that are getting Yoga Hosers.
I am not driving to the central suburbs. I'll stay out here, and I'll let Yoga Hosers come to VOD. Because
Yeah, I don't even know if I'd watch this on VOD. Maybe I'll rewatch. I don't know.
here's the thing: there's a theater that I'm perfectly willing to drive to that typically shows these kinds of movies, the movies that don't get everywhere. You know what's showing this weekend instead of Yoga Hosers? Some movie called Skip Trace with Johnny Knoxville and Jackie Chan.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
You know
I
what's
heard of
playing nearer to me instead of Yoga Hosers is a Dungeons and Dragons Fathom event live.
That's
That's what took that slot instead of Yoga Hosers.
Like the film Dungeons and Dragons?
no, it's an actual of the game.
What do you mean, like people playing Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe like talking about the fantasy books. I don't know.
What the fuck is this? Okay.
People will go and see that crap.
Hey,
That's like
I don't mean crap like I mean
They're doing
crap like
they're doing it for Harmon Quest.
yeah.
yeah, there you go. You know, so people will go pay money to see stuff like that. You know, Fathom events do well unless it's Yoga Hosers.
I kind of wish that was coming here because I just decided I'm not going to drive to Aurora and do that because it's not worth. I'm not going to take an hour out of my day to drive to see this fucking movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait till the VOD and watch it here. Maybe maybe there are other places that I can find it.
Yeah, it's
This thing's going to disappear from theaters quickly, so it'll probably be on VOD soon after.
I will see it as soon as I'm capable of seeing it to some degree of convenience. That's all.
Did anybody in the theater with you like it?
No one laughed. There was no laughter.
Oh,
This movie was like a Lars von Trier film.
See, that's the thing. When I saw Tusk, I was laughing throughout Tusk, mostly because of.
Yeah, Tusk had some laugh. Tusk garnered some laughter from my audience.
It wasn't a good movie, but I laughed, and sometimes it was a good laugh. Sometimes it was laughing at how horrible the movie was getting. But,
yeah, it was mostly it was like shock laughter. You know, like oh my god, he's a fucking walrus! Isn't that crazy? You know.
Yeah.
So you know.
So okay, now that we've talked about the shitty horror movie that Bill saw. We're going to talk about a reasonably decent horror movie.
I wouldn't even call Yoga Hosers a horror movie. I would
Yeah,
call
it
it
doesn't
like
look like a horror film.
It's-
Tusk, you could at least argue has the tone of a horror film. This looks like a Richard Linklater on a fever dream.
I guess you could call Yoga Hosers a horror film in the sense that it's so horribly bad.
Yeah, in that sense, it is a horror film. It's a horror. It's a living nightmare. How about that?
So, Don't Breathe.
Okay.
I did the same thing you were doing there, by the way. I was holding my breath, and I was hoping that everyone would join.
If you go watch Yoga Hosers, you better not breathe, because then you'll be dead, and you won't have to watch Yoga Hosers.
Then you do want to breathe.
Yeah, in which case you want to breathe, but not be in the theater.
So, Hawk, why don't you start us off about Don't Breathe?
Okay. All right. Sorry, I gotta catch my breath. I liked it a lot. It's fantastic. Directed by Fede Alvarez, who directed the Evil Dead remake, which I also loved a lot. This guy is now 2 for 2 on extremely well shot, well paced horror films. Mm-hmm. Don't Breathe is another home invasion thriller, but it again puts another sort of twist on it, where these hooligans are breaking into this dude's house to steal his money because they know that he has a lot of it. But it turns out he is a blind war veteran who is extremely dangerous. He ends up locking them in the house and is hunting them through the house. One of the best things about the film is that it makes incredibly great use of space and of its cinematography.
You know, the trailers for this probably show too much.
Yes,
they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the biggest twists in the movie is given away in the trailer, and everyone knows what it is if they've seen the trailers. So it's
at least they didn't reveal the intricacies of that twist and what led it to that, but it's still disappointing that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was waiting for it to be like, oh, when's that part going to happen so I'll know what's going on?
Exactly, and I don't. Trailer shouldn't. Here's the thing. I know in the old days, trailers used to literally lay out the entire movie beat for beat, but there was a point in trailer history, sometime I would say in the 90s, when trailers were at their peak, because you would get the basic premise and you would get Don LaFontaine's wonderful voice and that's what you would get, the mood of it.
I think it was around the mid-2000s that trailers started becoming overly indulgent on plot.
Now, isn't the MPAA, I read this a few years ago, I don't know when it was going to go into place, but the MPAA was actually putting some restrictions on trailers stating that they could not exceed a certain length and could not show certain things. But that never really came to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
I think, honestly, I don't think a trailer should exceed a minute and a half. I think anything longer than that is excessive. And
I think a minute and a half to 2 minutes is perfect.
How long is the 10th Cloverfield Lane trailer?
It's not long.
But
even no matter whatever the length of 10 Cloverfield Lane is, that is an incredibly well put together trailer.
That's what I'm saying. That's probably the best trailer I've seen in a long fucking time.
They know how to market that movie. Another good trailer is Star Wars
1 minute
Rogue
and
One.
44 seconds long.
Okay.
Yeah.
The original trailer for Rogue One was really well put together too.
Oh yeah, it was just an assembly.
The trailer for The Phantom Menace was pretty good too.
Oh my
It
god!
fooled people into thinking the movie was going to be pretty great.
Speaking of clerks, there's this 7-Eleven by my friend's house, and the clerk that works at night likes to I'll have T-shirts on with Guardians of the Galaxy or something, and this dude likes to chat me the fuck up. And the other day, he was telling me how much he loves the prequels, and I was like, your credibility just went right out the fucking window, bud.
Yeah.
But
I just do not trust the opinion of anyone who makes an argument for the artistic importance of the prequels.
A lot of people.
There's going to be a fan documentary coming out soon about I think it's called what is it? Attack of the Prequels or something?
I know what you're talking about. I will watch it, and because I'd like to see their case be made in a longer form.
But
I would say that the prequels are artistically important because they're a really good case study on how not to do a prequel.
Yeah.
How to do? I mean, just an installment in a franchise, really.
It's how not to make a fucking movie or direct it or anything. So I read all this shit about how George Lucas would actually do a couple different shots and have his editors splice things together, which completely robbed any of the emoting that Hayden Christensen may or may not have been doing. More than likely he wasn't doing it, but still the efforts he made given the material he had. Like you could see it in a shot with him and Emperor Palpatine.
Okay.
What's his name? Ian McDiarmid or whatever.
People.
But yeah, no, like you see it, and like you actually see a very subtle change in Anakin's face positioning. He moves a little bit to the left, but it looks like he like fades into the next expression, if that makes sense.
If I forget to say action or cut, just say action or cut.
That's what he would do. Is that he would like have these scenes, and then whatever the actors were doing in that scene, he would eventually just splice together to get the perfect shot. Which, you can see it because the actors don't do jack, and then B, frustrated the hell out of his editor because he's coming to me every day, making me work this magic on stupid scenes that don't need to be changed like this.
It's very heavily featured in the Plinkett review of Episode 1, but the behind-the-scenes documentary of the making of Episode 1, it's super fucking entertaining. Just because of it's clear to just anybody watching it. And again, the Plinkett review highlights every little brilliant moment, but you can tell that he had no idea what he's doing. The first screening where he sits down with the crew and watches the first cut. The editor tries to explain tone to him.
Yeah.
And it's just in one ear out the other. And then later on he's like, it's stylistically designed to be that way. It's like, no, the fuck it's not.
This is from the same guy that made Strange Magic, when he's describing his thought process behind Strange Magic, be like, wouldn't it be cute if cartoon characters were singing popular rock songs?
Oh my god! No!
That's an exact quote. That's an exact quote he saw behind his reasoning for doing Strange Magic.
And now somebody took that idea to the nth degree with Sing.
I think
Sing looks awful.
At the very basic level, with between the prequels and the original Star Wars films, is the aesthetic of it, and that is the fact that the original Star Wars films felt like a lived-in universe. Buildings were dirty. It looked like people had worked in them, had done things. This is a place where people live. This is a place where people work. This is a place where a fight has happened at one point. Everything in the Phantom Menace looks clean.
It's
everywhere.
Clinical, even.
Yeah, and it's lit so evenly. It's like watching an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, but that has the excuse of being an early '90s television show made for cable on a budget.
Yeah, it's kind of like the difference between Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, where you have this amazing forced perspective to show that Gandalf is taller than the hobbits, even to the point where the buggy that they're riding on in Fellowship is built in such a way so that Frodo is sitting actually 2 feet behind Gandalf, so he looks significantly smaller than him. Whereas in the Hobbit movies, Gandalf would walk into the burrow, or it's not the burrow, the Shire, the fucking house that he lives in or whatever, and was Hobbit Hole, and acting against a green screen in which the shorter hobbits would be edited into, and Gandalf or Ian McKellen was just saying how heartbreaking it was that he was not able to act effectively with other actors because he was talking to a green screen instead of Peter Jackson putting in the effort to do that same forced perspective.
Yeah.
And creative set building that he did with Lord of the Rings.
It's like Ewan McGregor acting next to a guy with a stick.
Yeah. Well, again, those
head on the end of the stick. Talk to that.
I remember seeing that in the set pictures. It's like the Geonosians, like this guy is wearing a cap with a ball on top of it. I can imagine trying to act like you want to emote at the person who's got a face, but you got to talk up above their head like that. Would be so awkward.
At least in the first film, Jar Jar Binks, they made him wear a Jar Jar costume, so that there was at least something to be acted against.
The actor was standing in. I'll say this about that: one of my favorite films of all time, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Bob Hoskins is playing off nobody throughout most of that fucking film.
That attests to Bob Hoskins' talent.
True.
It's an amazing.
But my point is, it can be done.
And solid direction.
It doesn't have to
giving-
be the prequels.
Very true. So
It's hard to do it with Ian McKellen as a classically trained actor. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
But
this
yeah,
all ties into Don't Breathe, of course, because
Sorry.
We were talking about trailers giving too much away.
Right.
So Don't Breathe is the latest horror film from Fede Alvarez, and it's produced by Rob Tapert, Sam Raimi, and Alvarez, and it very much feels to me like this is what it feels like. It feels like when the Evil Dead movie was done, Alvarez said, I want to make this kind of movie again, but I don't want to do it for a franchise. So I'm going to create my own world for characters to run around in, and for something similar to happen, removing the paranormal element to it.
So, I was reading the AMA on this. He's had the idea for Don't Breathe for a while, and actually, I didn't realize this, but he directed that YouTube movie Panic Attack about the giant robots attacking the city.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of that.
It's actually kind of cool. Fede Alvarez was approached to direct a Marvel film, which was never revealed what it is, but speculation is that it was going to be Doctor Strange. And Alvarez turned it down because he was worried that creating a huge franchise film, especially for a machine like Marvel, would rob him of creative control. And creative control is very important to him, which is why he was able to negotiate the budget for Don't Breathe down to a absolute shoestring amount so that he would have full creative control over the film.
Under $10 million.
You mentioned
I
Doctor
think it was like
Strange.
$8 million.
I
What?
thought it was weird that you said he was offered Doctor Strange, but then I thought about it, and the director of Doctor Strange made horror films.
Yeah, so they were obviously going for like a weird direct, which is at the same time though kind of weird. Is like Disney's like, we need a guy to direct this. How about the guy that did Evil Dead? That would be terrific.
Mhm.
Whereas
It'd be better for like Man Thing or
Alvarez doesn't even do there's nothing. I mean, it's supernatural Evil Dead, but at least with Scott Derrickson, you can see the supernatural stuff in Doctor Strange could be tied to the spiritual stuff that Scott Derrickson usually works with. So I'd be really curious to see Fede Alvarez do a big budget tentpole film. But at the same time, these tiny budget movies, he's so damn good at it that I really don't want to see him stop doing those either.
right.
So to get into the storyline of Don't Breathe, you have a trio of
Hooligans.
Of hooligan. Well, I would call them thieves, because what they do is they go around robbing houses, and they have some very specific rules that they adhere to. You have Jane Levy as Rocky, Dylan Minette as Alex, and Daniel Zavato as Money.
So I wanted to really point out the cast for a second, because I don't remember what Daniel Zavato has been in, but Jane Levy was in Evil Dead, and Dylan Person was in Goosebumps.
Dylan Person.
I can't remember his last name, but
Nah.
at first I thought it was the kid from The Maze Runner.
Daniel Zavato was in It Follows. He was in Laggies, Beneath Innocence, if you've seen any of those.
So
He's
his
also
more-
on Fear the Walking Dead. He has a recurring role.
The guy who plays Money should have been James Franco.
His alien.
Doing
His-
Alien. You guys
And-
want them scooters? Huh?
Again, trailers giving too much away. I know that character dies, so
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. The character Money is, even if you didn't see the trailer, you would know from the first frame. This is the character who is going to be the dispensable. He's the dispensable character.
He is the early death that they serve on a platter for the hungry horror fans.
because he's the most ghetto of them.
Yeah.
He brings the gun with it. He's the guy who's all. They show him very early in the film in a scene with them robbing another house, just pissing on the floor just because he can.
He's irredeemable. He needs to die.
And so he gets it pretty early, needless to say. And so what ends up happening is the blind guy, whose his character is played by Stephen Lang. The character is the blind man in the credits, but apparently he has a name, Norman Nordstrom.
Nordstrom.
Yeah.
Shouldn't he be like an accountant?
Yeah. Well, anyway.
What's next? Marty Macy's?
No, it's
Rick Ross.
Rick Ross.
Oh yeah, that's good.
So
Rick Ross.
So what happens is that they get into this house, and the reason they're able to get into the house so easily is because the character Alex is kind of a spoiled brat whose father runs a security company, and so he exploits that by breaking his father's trust and stealing information about houses to rob through that, and how their security systems are set up. And so this house happens to be one that has that. And they're tipped off and said, this guy had a big legal settlement. He lost his daughter in a car accident years ago, and he doesn't have any bank accounts. We know he has this money. I don't know how the bank account line, but anyway.
What?
What's that?
You don't know what?
Well, I'm not sure how, because they say, if I'm not mistaken, they say in the movie that they know, so whatever it is they say exactly, they know that he's got all this money in his house.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow.
Cash.
They never quite explain that. But.
So the tip-off is given by the guy in the van who is obviously close to the blind man.
Mm-hmm.
The fence. So one of the rules that Ken was talking about in the movie is that they do not steal cash, because if they did, that would be grand larceny, and they do not use weapons because that would be armed assault, which is a felony. So they only steal merchandise, which is only a misdemeanor if they were to screw up and get caught.
And they only steal a certain amount of
under $10,000. Yeah. So
right.
And they take it to this fence who lives in a how should we say this?
A van down by the river.
It's like in a van in a dingy ass warehouse, and it's fun. Like, of course he lives in there. This fence who gives this guy like $40 for a Rolex. He gives money. $40 for a Rolex, and money's frustrated. He's like, well, if you want cash, then steal some fucking cash. This guy I know is sitting on at least $300,000 at his house in cash, because his daughter got killed by a rich girl, and because rich girls don't go to prison, they settled for a large sum of money that he now has in his house. So I think the no bank accounts line was to make it very clear that the money's definitely in his house.
Right. But anyway, needless to say, they get into the house, and money gets killed, and it turns out that the blind man is more savvy than you might have expected. And do we want to go into the twist at all, Hawk?
That depends on how much Bill and Bill care about the twist.
I don't think I'm going to watch this personally, but I'm glad that it's good.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you guys liked it. It looked good from the trailers and everything.
I thought the beginning of the trailer, again, the girl in the movie, there's a line in the trailer where she's like, I just got to get out of this town. And I'm like,
all right,
okay,
yes or no, should we spoil this?
What?
Go ahead. All
right, so it turns out that the blind guy has got a rape basement. And in the basement...
kind of. No, he says that he's not a rapist.
Which is bullshit, because...
That's what he says, because he wants to trick himself into thinking he's a
rapist. How many rapists admit to being rapists?
So here's what he's got. Before you go into this, Hog, let me go ahead and say, tell me if you consider this rape, okay?
Brock Turner.
In the basement, he keeps the... Yes, Brock Turner, okay.
I'm glad you caught that.
Yeah. In the basement, he keeps this girl who killed his daughter, by the way. The girl who killed his daughter, he keeps in his basement, and he injected her with semen using a turkey baster in order to make her produce a baby to replace the one that she killed.
He's doing a Pink Flamingos thing.
Yeah.
Would you call this rape?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rape. I mean,
he
may not be doing traditional rape, but it's still rape.
Oh,
so you get this. He's warming up. Okay, so through certain events, the Jane Levy character is now chained up in the room, which is not less a room than like a half room that just has like mismatched couch cushions and pillows and shit just
we have to get
nailed to the wall. So
she doesn't just wind up chained there. What ends up happening is through a series of a series of action sequences, the girl who was pregnant now with the blind man's baby gets killed. The blind man accidentally kills her because he was just shooting, and he blames Jane Levy for this and says, "All right, well, you'll do."
So you get
It's
this
surrogate.
gratuitous sequence where, as the Jane Levy character is asking why he's doing this, he's like taking his little jar of cum out of the fridge and warming it on the hot plate, and then he takes the turkey baster, and it's so gross. You get a camera angle of inside the turkey baster as he's like sucking it up, and the cum level is whoop just right at the camera, and there's like little hair.
There's
in
a
it.
lot of it. This guy was busy.
There's a lot of jizz in that jar.
Like, dude, does he really need that much?
These things are pretty big.
So this guy is very what's the word?
He produces.
He's
He
productive.
produces.
You could say that.
He's a stallion basically.
He's got a lot of swimmers in the
I'm fucking speechless.
So he has her hanging by chains in this basement, and he takes scissors and slices her pants at just the wrong or right angle for him to do his deed. And then he heats up the turkey baster, all the while he's monologuing about what he's doing.
Yeah. Oh, and then he's like walking towards her, holding turkey baster, and you see like a little streamy drip.
Oh my god!
Come out of the mouth of the turkey baster.
Oh yeah, it's like a comedy, you guys. Well, no, it's not. It's disturbing. But
Here's the thing: it is both revolting, horrifying, and I have to admit, I did kind of chuckle a little bit at how incredibly gruesome it all was, because I'm the kind of person who, when I see something that horrifying, my first reaction is like uncomfortable laughter, because it's just like I don't know how to react to it.
Yeah, you can tell there is a bit of a sense of humor to that.
Yeah, Alvarez was definitely going for a little bit of camp in that scene.
And the tone of the movie just shifts at this point. But I will say,
I wouldn't say it shifts. I think what they're implying that he does is so awful that they need to deflect some of that, because the movie is tense, but it's never bleak, I guess.
that sounds pretty bleak.
No, it does, which is why at this point they inject a little bit of camp to keep the movie from shifting into.
Why did he need a jar in a fridge? I mean, couldn't he just that's?
well, he's storing it up. You got to store it up.
Yeah, but didn't he already make the girl pregnant?
Well,
so you're saying like
he still had some left over.
Like what? He needs to make her super pregnant? Like
An entire jar left over?
Are you saying like why didn't he jerk off into the turkey baster?
Right, like, or just hold once and then.
This is gonna. He says he's not a. He says he's not a rapist, so he's probably couldn't get it going.
What he assures Jane Levy, the line he says a couple times is 9 months and you're free to go, and it's just like, oh god, this is.
Yeah, so he's just keeping her for as long as she produces the baby. But of course, the first girl, he had a nice little hole in the ground that he could just. Moves. He pulls a lever and some tar flows into it. Then he just puts the.
Yeah, he had a body-sized hole there, so he was.
So obviously, he was not planning on letting her go.
No.
But I did want to kind of talk about that sequence leading up to that, because that's probably the movie has a lot of terrific, very well earned jump scares.
I wouldn't say it has a lot of jump scares. It has some jump scares in some very, I would say, earned moments.
Yeah, I would say there's not a ton of them, but the ones that there are do not feel cheap at all. So my favorite one...
You never have the cat running out going, ah!
Yeah, nor do you almost never have the very, very quiet before something leaps out at you. I think there's one of those.
Like the old man and Boy Next Door.
And it was that was a good one. That was a great one. But anyway, they're in the base. So when they first try to break into the house, they're going to get into the cellar, but the cellar door is bolted shut and they can't get through there. So later in the movie, they find themselves in the cellar and they find that cellar door. So they're going to get out of it, and you can hear the old man stomping around in the basement trying to find them. And you stop hearing him stomp around. They're still trying to struggle with a bolt, and they open it up, kick the door open, and he's right there with a gun. He actually went back around outside and was waiting for them at the cellar door. Like, it's fantastic.
And then just starts firing bullets through.
Yeah, into the cellar. So most of the scenes in the movie, I was like, yeah, he's probably going to pop out there. But like that one totally got me.
Oh, he pops it. All right.
Now, one thing I thought was interesting is because there was a lot of gunfire early on in that sequence. I was actually counting every single bullet to see if they exceeded the bullet number, because they tell you exactly the kind of gun it was, and I was remembering my days of playing video games back in, Rainbow Six back in the day. I was like, that has a, and they got exactly the number of bullets I remember there being.
They don't do any like movie magic where a handgun has like 47,000 rounds in it before you have to reload.
You fired 20 shots and that's a 6-shooter.
So that was really cool. That was a nice touch as well. And then of course the sequence where he turns off the power to the basement and it's just pitch black.
Mm-hmm. And they go to the night vision.
Such a well directed scene.
So I want to know what happens. Like, okay, he's got the baster. He's warming it up. He's walking towards her.
For a moment, the movie turns into a kind of revenge movie because before he's able to do his gross deed, he finds a way to knock him down and jams the baster down his throat and.
Oh, good God! Does that really happen?
Oh yeah, he's like call, and it's like that happened too. Yeah,
that's beautiful.
He's a master baster.
Yeah, she grabs the baser and shoves that motherfucker nozzle down.
Which is, I think, let me put it this way. If they had ended the scene in any other way, I think this movie would be so controversial that it may never have seen the light of day.
Yeah.
Because that is a fucked up image to have in your head. But the fact that he... Yeah, so anyway...
The presence of semen in this... Holy shit!
And that much semen too. That's
there's so much of it.
That's like Takeshi Miike level semen. That's like Ichi
no, more
the
than
Killer.
That, I would say
Ichi the Killer level semen. That's
and it's very the shots of the semen are very in the jar and in the baster are very
believable.
I don't want to say tastefully shot.
Don't say that.
As tastelessly shot as possible, I would argue.
They're very artfully shot. A clean, symmetrical shot into a jar of a whole bunch of semen.
If Wes Anderson was going to film a shot with some semen, he wouldn't have done it.
It was a Wes Anderson shot of that jar.
Was it? Okay.
Yes, a very Wes Anderson shot.
Of that jar.
In fact, you could tell me that Wes Anderson got called in for those 5 shots.
I was a DP on the cum scenes.
He's like a first unit director on the cum scene. Wes Anderson.
Well, it's possible. Jason Mewes was the guest cameraman in Clerks 2 for the shots of when Randall put the fly on the burger and took the ice out of the urinal.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's possible.
Wes Anderson. How would you title that scene? Because Wes Anderson always loves those weird kind of flighty titles to movies.
I wouldn't give it a title. He wouldn't have to give it a title. He's a special guest director.
But
I know he likes to do that. I'm just saying. But I guess how would it be done? It would.
You'd have a clean title card that says, in which a turkey baster is used for creative methods.
Jizzmaster Zero.
Oh yeah, Jizzmaster Zero. You can't defeat me, Orgasmo.
I love that movie so much.
So anyway,
So
what else in Don't Breathe? Oh,
he's got the thing jammed down his throat, and it's goozing out.
And she escapes to a point, and basically what happens is the other home invader, Alex, at this point in the movie, you think he's dead, but it turns out that they kind of pulled a fast one on you, and he actually survived the attack that was done.
Which is funny because he's basically like the character in Evil. I mentioned this on the Facebook chat. He's basically like the character in Evil Dead, the remake. I'm hoping this becomes a staple of Fede Alvarez movies where one character just takes an impossible amount of damage without dying. So at the point in Evil Dead, this guy is duct taping his wounds shut.
Yeah.
So at this point, the Goosebumps kid is been shot at like 3 times, beaten to a pulp, almost stabbed. It's like all kinds of bullshit.
So anyway, what ends up happening is the blind guy thinks he's killed him by stabbing him with a giant pair of gardening shears, but it turns out instead he stabbed the money again, the dead body of money, because he's blind. So
Money's like, I think I'm gonna live now.
That would have been funny if they'd done that.
But anyway, so her and Alex kind of find themselves wandering the house, trying to find a quick way to get out, because the old man has battened down the hatches. This house is built like a fortress. It's hard to get in. It's harder to get out. And so what ends up happening is you have kind of a bunch of different little small action sequences. Like she winds up crawling into the air ducts of the house, and he winds up kind of wandering the house and trying to escape the dog that's trying to. Because yeah, he has the blind guy has a dog that's pretty nasty.
A fucking huge dog, which I thought the dog was funny because the dog is like horrible and vicious, but then like in scenes where he's just standing there, he's panting like a cute little puppy.
Mm-hmm. And
the dog is like Shakma.
So long story short, what ends up happening is the blind guy finally, in the final confrontation, the blind guy does manage to kill Alex. Eventually, how does he do it? I forget exactly.
He's about to go out the door, and then he shoots him twice in the back.
Right. Yeah. So pretty nothing too exotic about that. But in the fight, she winds up knocking him down the stairs, and presumably the blind guy is killed. Until you find out that he hasn't been, because she gets away. She escapes. She takes the money. And her daughter are like states away in California, and then you see a news report about the house, and you find out that the blind guy survived. And by the way, somehow the police, because all they mention in the news report is that 3 people were trying to rob him. He was killed in his rape basement. How in the fuck did the cops in their investigation not look at the evidence in the basement and start to question him too?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know. That's one kind of.
So he survived, but like, does he go after her?
Oh, he survived for the sequel. Is basically what I was told. I guarantee this is going to have a sequel.
Kind of like the end.
Doing well enough in the box.
Kind of like the end of that Dan Aykroyd movie, Nothing But Trouble, where it's like, oh, they survived. And then Chevy Chase jumps through the wall.
So one of the things that this movie did really well was its use of sound.
Yes.
Exceptionally well done. So one of my favorite things is towards the beginning, Jane Lady's character is breaking into the house, and the glass breaks in, and with her shoes she steps on a piece of the glass, and so all down the hallway, every other step is a clank, 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 because she's got the piece of glass embedded in her shoe.
Right.
Stuff like that. Another good thing about the film is that towards the very beginning, as they're in the house, and there's this awesome continuous tracking shot with no cuts that zooms in on certain items, that as you continue to watch the movie, you find out what the movie was doing is pointing out items that will have some significance later on in the film.
This movie is a textbook Chekhov's gun movie.
Yeah.
Everything they present you with as a prop gets used like one after another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really cool how the movie kind of looks like just kind of standard horror film, but it's so much more calculated than that. I would like to hear what Fede Alvarez's explanation is for the police not finding the rape dungeon.
Yeah.
But even like, so people online are like, so how did this blind guy kidnap a girl and chain her up? Well, in an interview, Fede Alvarez says it was actually the fence in the van who knows. That's why he knows about the mark, is because he helped him kidnap the girl.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Maybe the next movie is going to be a prequel for all we know.
Well, Fede Alvarez said for that scene in particular, he's like, well, A, it's not really that important, and B, as far as the 3 main kids, they would have no way of knowing that, so I have no need to try to spoon-feed that explanation to you as an audience.
That's good. That's good that he thinks like that.
Yeah.
If I were the cops, I'd be like, sir, why do you have jizz on your face?
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah.
I mean, we're here to help you, but we're also concerned.
And
we're not criticizing, not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's a lot.
You do you, man, but we got to do a full investigation and ask all the right questions.
You have a lot vomited on your shirt and around your mouth and lips.
Here's the thing. Even though he did go to a pretty good extent to hide the body of the girl that he had impregnated, and they do make a point of that, that basement still has a room full of chains and like cushions that are all over the place. And
I guess like maybe they were
questions
like
are going to be fucking asked.
at the same time maybe they asked him, he's like, you know what? I have a very specific taste in prostitutes. Fuck you. So
I'm sorry, when you've got 2 dead bodies in the house that the police find,
You better.
they're going to go through that thing with a fine-tooth comb.
Be
So
specific
it could be
with
just
your
the fact
answers,
that they haven't gotten to that point in their investigation yet. Maybe
Sure.
maybe the
They're
next
going-
movie is going to be.
Are you suggesting
in
they're
prison.
going? Are you suggesting they're going room to room, and it's taking them a week to go through each room?
you know, I think Ken makes a good point though, that might be the actual explanation they were looking for, is that they get there, they find 2 dead bodies and a blind man in critical condition. Their first thing is to get him to the hospital. That's when the news report was filmed, and as he's in the hospital, then they go back and kind of like really look at the crime scene.
Right.
So
because it is true that information doesn't always break right away. It's like with a perfect example, the whole thing with the Olympics, the Ryan Lochte thing. The first news story that broke was that they were robbed, and because that's all they knew at the time.
Okay.
But then more investigation was done, and more information came out as time went. So that would at least be. I won't call it a plot hole until the inevitable sequel happens and we find out what they have to say.
Wonder how they're gonna ramp up the grossness. I mean, what more can he do?
I'd be okay if they didn't do a sequel and just left it like it is.
Yeah, they
I would
probably
be-
should just do that.
I would be okay if they didn't do a sequel, but this movie was shot for under $10 million, and this movie,
It knocked off Suicide Squad, didn't it?
yeah,
It already made like I think 27 this weekend. So
and it's probably gonna double that at least when all is said and done, and then the international grosses and then VOD. So Hollywood likes to sequelize things, even if Fede Alvarez has nothing to do with it. They'll find a way.
So what are they going to call the sequel? Okay, the first one's Don't Breathe. The sequel is Don't
Breathe again.
Breathe. Oh, there you go.
there you go.
Don't take a second breath.
Don't stop breathing.
Don't stop breathing.
Don't stop
So-
breathing.
Sequels.
Breathing, not breathing.
Don't stop
Okay.
breathing.
Have any of you guys seen American Psycho 2 starring Mila Kunis?
Yeah, I saw
You
most.
know, that was originally
Oh
not going to be
my
an American
God.
Psycho movie.
I tried to watch it once. I didn't get very far.
How about An American Werewolf in Paris?
Haven't
Yeah.
seen that. The movie. There's a reason I bring this up though. I watched Donnie Darko over the weekend.
Oh, and you saw S. Donnie Darko? Or S.
I
Darko?
want to see S. Darko, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, it's probably going to be fucking horrible. with,
I've
like,
heard it's.
You know, it's I want to see if it's still on here, but last week somebody pointed out to me that the Wikipedia page, right? If you have a movie on there, the first description for the movie is, oh, so-and-so is an American supernatural thriller from, you know. Okay, so it's not there anymore, but it was. So Donnie Darko is a 2001 American psychological horror science fiction drama. And originally, the little brackets there said citation needed.
I made this joke over the weekend. Yeah.
Did you? Okay.
Yes. It's great. I was like, there's never been a more appropriate citation needed in all of Wikipedia.
I don't really
Which
like
means-
Donnie Darko, but
I like it. I like the little moments in it.
You know what Donnie Darko is?
But it's so far up its own ass, like
Yeah,
the movie
well, that's-
acts like it knows what it is from start to finish, and it really
that's just
doesn't.
Richard Kelly in a nutshell, though.
Yes, I know.
I think this is more
I've
Richard
been
Kelly's
curious-
legacy. This is more Richard Kelly's legacy than anything. I'll bet if Richard Kelly went on to do a bunch of other spectacular movies or really interesting movies, people would look at Donnie Darko as, you know what, that was a great first film for him.
Yes.
But instead they say, you know what, that's it's a very there's some promising stuff in that movie. You can't say critics don't talk about that movie without at least some level of pause.
Richard Kelly is an idea machine with no clue how to make a full-length feature out of it.
I've never seen The Box. Has anybody seen The Box?
I like the box, but it
Bill
gets
saw The Box. Tell me
weird.
about. Is The Box good?
I
It's
like
fine.
the box. That's
yeah, I
fine.
liked it too. It just gets really strange. Again, he runs out of ideas for a 2-hour movie, and it gets fucking weird towards the end.
Southland Tales is one of the most ludicrously just bizarre failures I've ever seen of a movie. I can't say that I hated watching it because it it was truly special in its own way.
I've got soul, but I'm
It's a
not
movie that is way up its
soldier.
ass.
I've got soul, but I'm not a soldier. I better stop before we get a copyright strike.
Okay.
He clearly thought that he was making one of the greatest movies ever made.
I need to see this
South
thing. I've never watched it all. I've seen that Killer's Justin Timberlake scene like a million times. I think it's great.
Oh yeah, you guys gotta see Southland Tales.
They've seen.
You know what it is? It is El Dorado bad.
Is it?
It's so strange.
I don't know if it's El Dorado bad, but it's not good.
El
It's a
Dorado
mess.
interesting.
Yes, because it's all over the place. There's no
It's all over the place, but
tone to that
El
movie.
Dorado was like incomplete.
But the Southland Tales is based
Southland
on a
Tales was incomplete.
huge. It's based on a huge companion graphic novel.
Yeah,
Yeah, I actually own the graphic novel.
the full version of
Really?
Southland Tales is my understanding, Bill. It's never been released. Yeah, apparently the full version of Southland Tales is something like 4 hours long.
There's a Cannes cut that was online for a while. That the version that got booed at Cannes Film Festival.
Mhm.
That one I actually preferred. I felt that was superior to the theatrical cut.
I didn't. This is news to me. Richard Kelly's sophomore effort got booed at Cannes Film Festival.
Yeah.
That's
Very few movies do.
There's something special about that information.
Yeah, the only other movie I can think of off the top of my hand,
Vincent Gallo's The Brown Bunny.
Oh yeah,
No.
you're right, that did. And then the newest, that Sea of Trees movie with Matthew McConaughey that finally got a VOD release this week.
No, there was another one like last year, the year before that got booed. I can't remember what it was though.
Movies get booed
The Sea of
frequently.
Trees came out. It was booed at Cannes and like.
Which one? Which one?
The Sea of Trees. It's the movie about the suicide forest in Japan.
Oh, I'm thinking of a different. There was a different one that got booed, and it was relatively recent as well, and it was a mainstream film as well. But I can't remember what it was.
At Cannes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
I just found an article: 15 movies that were booed at Cannes.
yeah, that's what I'm looking at too.
So let's see what that is. We got. Let's see. Pulp Fiction? What?
Yeah,
No, didn't that win the
very
the-
famously.
Didn't
I
that
didn't
win
hear about
didn't that win a prestigious award at Cannes Film
Won
Festival?
the top one, yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
That's interesting.
But that happens sometimes. That
I
happens.
think-
Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me, The Tree of Life, Antichrist.
Firewalk with me.
I can't say that I disagree with that.
I was thinking of Only God Forgives.
Oh.
Okay.
David Cronenberg's Crash,
Uh-huh.
Taxi Driver.
I loved Crash. That was crazy.
Taxi Driver.
I love
What's
David
wrong?
Cronenberg's Crash. However, the other Crash with
Yeah, Paul Haggis. Yeah.
Paul
Haggis.
Haggis. Ex
Man, what
Scientology.
a pretentious piece of shit.
They booed Wild at Heart. Come on.
That one.
That was
won.
probably just a calculated effort. Like, hey guys, we haven't booed anything in a while, so let's just kind of just do it for the publicity.
I like that New York accent you just did. That was funny.
for the French. Yeah. It's in
All right,
France.
so we have one more movie to talk about this week.
Do we have to?
I'm really tired.
What is it?
We do have to because it's a fantastic movie and, in my opinion, the best movie of the year.
What is it?
Hell or High Water.
Oh, this.
Oh yeah, you really wanted to talk about that, didn't you?
Now, I'm not going to talk about it at length because I don't want to spoil it because you guys have to see this movie because this movie's amazing.
It is playing near me.
Actually, since it stars Jeff Bridges, I am legally obligated to see it. So.
And Bill, there is a definite revenge angle in the story.
Okay.
I think
Got me interested.
I said Bill when I meant Hawk, but yeah, anyway.
But I knew what you meant.
Yeah, our names are very similar.
So similar. Phonetically identical, really.
So Hell or High Water. The plot is basically you have Chris Pine and Ben Foster play brothers, Toby and Tanner Howard, and they're these Texas good old boys. Chris Pine is he's kind of lived kind of a straight life. He very clean. He is not a criminal. He spent the last 3 years taking care of the sick mother that no one in their family particularly seems to have loved, but they give him a lot of credit for taking care of her until she died. And as the events of this movie his brother Ben Foster has just been released from jail from prison after a stint that I guess it's been a few years, and the two of them come up with this scheme because their family homestead, this farmhouse, and all the property around it, their mother was tricked by the local Texas bank branch of this local Texas bank into a reverse mortgage situation that paid very little. It didn't pay her medical bills or anything, just enough for her to get by. And as a result of a reverse mortgage, of course, when you die, the bank takes your house and everything on it. It's kind of so. Anyway, what happens is they come up with this scheme to go around robbing those bank branches of this particular bank until they get up to just the right amount of money that it would take for them to buy their way out of that reverse mortgage to keep the to keep the land free and clear.
Right.
And so there's the revenge angle in that aspect, is that it's kind of a fuck you to the economy and to this bank for messing them over. And so they're doing that. And meanwhile, Jeff Bridges and what is his name? Gil Birmingham is the name of the actor. Is basically they're a couple of Texas Rangers who are searching for these bank robbers, and it's kind of got this great comedic subplot in that Jeff Bridges is the typical cop, 3 days from retirement kind of trope. He's going to be retiring in a few weeks, and his partner is this younger guy, but still, I would say middle-aged, so he's an experienced ranger. He's still got his years in front of him. And the two of them, it kind of turns into kind of a buddy movie in a way, because the two exchange some quips with each other, mostly because Jeff Bridges is a cantankerous old white guy, and the character, his character name, Gil Birmingham's character name is Alberto Parker, is half Native American, half Mexican. And Bridges is one of those old white guys who is not afraid to point out that fact at every point. And it's kind of the two have this love-hate relationship with each other, where they make fun of each other as much as they can. He calls him the old man, things like that. And what's fascinating about this movie, what makes it work so well, is the fact that both of these, because the movie has two sets of two characters who are kind of on a road journey together. One of them is a couple of bank robbers. One of them are the cops, and these characters are built up so well with characterization, but also with humor. There's a great deal of humor throughout this movie. This is one of the funniest movies I've seen this year, except this is also one of the most dark, fucked up movies I've seen this year. Because lingering underneath the humorous dialogue and the witty moments is the feeling that something can go wrong at any moment. You know how in the movie Heat, Robert De Niro is this bank robber who he doesn't like violence, but when put into a corner, he will, if it's you or me, you're hitting the floor and you're bleeding out. That sort of thing. It's kind of that way with Ben Foster's character. He's a criminal, and he lives or dies by the sword. And the movie gets pretty heavy in some scenes. I really enjoyed the direction. The director of this movie, David Mackenzie, really just hits it out of the ballpark. Beautiful landscapes of the West and North Texas prairie and the buttes and the rocky crags of and canyons. Really well shot. The towns, every town that you see in this movie is I'm sure, you know what, Hawk, I'll bet know this just as much as I do. When you have those small town farm communities out in the boondocks that are just falling apart left and right, and you can tell that maybe 20, 30 years ago this was a really happening place, and now it's just dying.
Yeah, I've had a few of those, and they've all ended the same way, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, this movie shoots there, and so there's even one moment where where Chris Pine and Ben Foster are going to rob a bank, and it turns out even this bank has failed in this particular town, and so they have to go to a different town. They have to change their plans because not even the town could support the one thing that was screwing them over to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an interesting thing. The music in this movie is wonderful. I've touted the benefits of Nick Cave and Warren Ellis collaborating on a musical score. This is one of their best. If you're a fan at all of good film score with kind of a folksy, earthy tone and a really the feeling of dread throughout.
Dread.
Yes.
Carl Urban.
Yes, that kind of dread, exactly. Carl Urban should have been in this movie, actually. I would have recast Ben Foster with Carl Urban, and Ben Foster is amazing.
Oh, because of the Kirk Bones thing. Okay.
Yes. Here's the thing, though. Ben Foster, I could see him legitimately getting an Academy Award nomination.
Okay.
And that's I say that without any
hesitation.
I loved Ben Foster as Charlie Prince in 3:10 to Yuma, if you guys remember that.
Yes.
I haven't seen that.
He was kind of the effete bad guy cowboy.
Does he play Russell Crowe's son in that?
No, he is Russell Crowe's second in command in that.
Yeah.
Somebody told me when that movie came out, they were like, I just saw 3:10 to Yuma, and you look like Russell Crowe's son in that movie. I had just met this person.
I think I got it wrong.
Yeah, you definitely don't look like Ben Foster as Charlie Prince, so I don't know if I even go there. But if you're a fan of that, or really just fantastic. Jeff Bridges is this is a role that he's been trying to find for the last few years since True Grit came out, and so you know how he's been getting a lot of roles that are not exactly becoming.
The fucking what was that movie he was in?
R.I.P.D.
R.I.P.D.
No, well, yeah, R.I.P.D. But
Seventh Son.
Seventh Son. That's what I was thinking of.
That's that sword and sorcery movie.
I'm a knight fighting witches.
Is that where he met Jeff Bridges?
Who? Chris Pine?
Who's in Seventh Son?
Chris Pine was in Seventh Son?
No, I'm just trying to figure out what he's
Are
got.
we talking about
Seventh Son was that Game of Thrones? What's his name? Shit. I don't know.
Yeah, well, nobody gives a fuck anyway. So
it just
Julianne Moore? I don't know.
I find it fascinating though how quickly Jeff Bridges' persona changed in the 2000s, because until then, until the early 2000s, Jeff Bridges was kind of the handsome, well-dressed guy in movies. He would always wear a suit. He had that. His voice was very high, and he's I'm an entrepreneur. I'm Tucker, the man in his dream, or something like that. In Arlington Road, he was a college professor who
I'm thinking because
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The main thing for me with younger Jeff Bridges is Tron, and there's a little bit of Dude in Flynn, his character in Tron.
But something happened in the mid-2000s where Jeff Bridges went from... Yeah, you're right. There was the Dude persona, too, I guess. I should give it that. But it took until the 2000s for the Dude to really gather up a lot of steam. Like, it wasn't a movie that was a huge hit at first.
No. In fact, I remember before I actually saw the film, it used to rerun on Comedy Central a lot, but I would try to watch it and be like, this is clearly edited.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But somewhere in the mid-2000s, Jeff Bridges suddenly, just overnight, his cheeks became, chiseled like rock, and his voice... and
that True Grit voice?
Yeah, he's Gabby Johnson from Blazing Saddles.
Right. Oh, Big Lebowski. Blazing Saddles reference.
Going to leave this town.
Who plays the Big Lebowski in that film? David Huddleston, is that his name?
In The Big Lebowski?
Yeah, the guy who plays
the Big Lebowski.
The Big Lebowski.
The guy who just died, yeah.
He's in Blazing Saddles, isn't he?
Pretty sure he is, yeah.
Wow, that's a really great bookend you just added there, Bill.
Yeah, I know, right. Enough of that shit. Here comes Mongo.
So what's this film called? Hell or High Water. Final thoughts on Hell or High Water.
Hell or High Water. My final thoughts on it.
Jesus. Just drop something. Continue.
It's you know what my final thoughts on it are just that it's a powerful movie with great performances. It's a modern day western in every sense of the term, and the ending of the movie is one of the most excellent confrontations I've ever seen written and performed on screen. And just see this movie as soon as you have an opportunity.
Cool.
Okay.
And that having been said,
There's two things. I gotta plug something, but
All
before that, I want to talk about how consistently funny the Eric Andre show is. I just caught the new episode last night. Oh my god, I laughed so fucking hard.
It's good.
You've seen it?
I saw the first episode.
Oh, dude. So I can't even explain half the shit. You got to see it. Like it's just that fucking show.
I'll watch it tomorrow.
It's great. Yeah, get caught up because this season's been consistently funny. He had the actress Tichina Arnold. She was on Martin, and she played the mom on Everybody Loves Chris.
Oh, okay.
Everybody
And
hates Chris, wasn't it?
Everybody hates Chris. Excuse me.
everybody loves Raymond, is what you were thinking.
Yeah,
of.
obviously. That's what the fucking title of Everybody Hates Chris is playing on. But so he's with her, and sometimes on the show when he's doing an interview, he'll be like, and now it's time for this, and it'll be like a stupid game, or someone will come out and just distract the guest. This interview, he goes, and now it's time for darkness, and the lights go out, and there's like a strobe light going on in the background, and you can see this dude in a Yeti suit coming up behind her. Right as she's about to react to it, like she turns and screams, and then it does that thing that the Eric Andre show does so well, where it just cuts and goes, "We'll be right back." It's great. There's another joke in that shit that made me fucking like cry laughing, but I can't even explain it. It's some of his like pranky man on the street type of shit. It's great. The Eric Andre show is probably like my second favorite show that's not canceled or finished airing.
What's your first favorite show?
BoJack Horseman.
Oh.
So it
And
just
that's-
dawned on me.
What's your hat?
My
From?
hat is Gravity Falls.
Oh, okay.
It just
Yes.
dawned on me that there's another movie we could potentially talk about that no one mentioned.
We could also talk about it next week.
What is it?
Well, I was about to say, is this movie really so forgettable that you didn't even think to mention it?
What is it?
Mechanic Resurrection.
Oh, yeah.
You saw it, didn't you? You didn't. Wait, you didn't even know I was talking about that, did you?
I had no idea what movie you were going to say.
You totally forgot. You saw it.
I did see it.
And what is? Oh my God!
So I'm a little hazy. What's the mechanic? That's like a thing.
He's an assassin who kills.
I mean, that's in
David-
terms of film. That's a movie. The mechanic.
Was
Yeah, no, he's a movie.
Charles
He's a-
Bronson.
It's a movie. He basically he's an assassin that kills you in such a way that it looks like an accident.
Right.
Two things I will say about Resurrection. I'll go into more detail next week. Remind me. One,
You'll
it
need
is exactly what you expect out of a Jason Statham film, which is to say it's not terrible at all. Like by any stretch of the imagination, it's not really that bad of a movie.
But it's
Nor is
also
it-
not very good.
It's not great. However, Tommy Lee Jones is everything that is good about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I will share one line that got me a really good belly laugh. They think they know he's going to get killed, so they take him down to his safe room with a big old, spinny lock thingy like safes have. Of course, the mechanic's waiting for him in there, and they're like, "Sir, we can't see him." And Tommy Lee Jones is like, "That's because he's staring at me inside the safe room, jack off." Everything about Tommy Lee Jones' performance in the 10 minutes he's in the movie is amazing. He is smug, and as Felix put it, like a murderous John Lennon. Like when you first see him, he's wearing striped silk pajamas, a bathrobe, and red circular sunglasses.
Listen, Paul, I didn't want to have to kill him, but I killed him.
So he's amazing. But anyway,
Beyond
we're running like 2 hours on this Pubcast
All
plus.
right,
So
plug. I'm about to record with Marcus Jones of Music Mondays with Marcus a review of the first two Primus albums. That'll probably release sometime next week. Keep an eye out for that. Just plugging it.
And somewhere in the future, Bill Arsenault and Bill Leon are going to do a wrestling podcast.
We need to get on that sooner rather than later, especially because this Monday they just did something really cool, which cooler than anything that's happened since I started watching again.
Yeah.
All right, so
that's again with the exception of everything Finn Balor.
So without further ado, next week is anyone going to see The Light Between Oceans or Morgan?
So, The Light Between Oceans was directed by the guy who did Blue Valentine, which instantly kind of aroused my interest, but Morgan I will probably just see because it looks kind of stupid. But that next week will be a great opportunity to talk about Mechanic. I want to talk about the the BBC show Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and there are a few other things that we'll be able to talk about as well. So next week will be light on new releases, but I'll see at least Morgan.
It's worth noting we are entering the dead zone that is September movies.
So who's reviewing what this coming week? Or this coming month, I mean, I'm sorry.
I actually lucked into Sully.
Oh.
Anyone else?
You walked into it?
No, he lucked into it.
Oh, lucked into it. So I am doing When the Bow Breaks and Snowden.
Oh, very
nice.
I'm throwing myself onto the When the Bow Breaks sword in the hopes that we'll get another Boy Next Door, but it's rated PG-13, so it won't be quite as absurd as that one was, but hopefully we'll get some giggles out of that.
I have a prediction that there are going to be a lot of critics very cleverly making jokes about the disappointments from being a disappointing film.
And, you know, that's a movie directed by, I want to say, DJ Caruso, and it's been delayed like 5 times, so...
Yeah.
How long has it been finished?
It's been finished for a while, but it's not as bad of a situation as Before I Wake, which has been struggling to find a release date since, I want to say, August of last year, if not earlier.
So we'll be seeing that next week. And good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right.